All right, and we're live. Hey, everybody. It's
Hey.
William WJR Parked back with writing Raven Universe. My co-author still in the process of moving, so I have been left with the reins by myself. Let's see how I do. Luckily, I got an experienced interviewer here with Joe Compton. How's it going, Joe?
Good. How are you guys?
Doing pretty good, pretty good. And our author guest, K.A. Reina. How do I don't know if I'm butchering that. How do you
Yes,
pronounce it?
it's Raina.
Okay.
You got it right.
All right. So, how are you doing today, Miss Reina?
Pretty good. Pretty good. I'm blessed to be here. I'm really, really happy to be here.
Awesome. So this is your first interview, right? This is the first time you've been on in front of the camera, or?
Yes, it is.
All right. So we're gonna show you how the interview goes then. Don't worry. Our my questions aren't too scary, hopefully. Don't scare anybody away
You're
with
fine.
them.
You're fine.
No, but yeah, so I really wanted to start with Joe. It might be interesting to kind of lead way for actually both of us, since I'm a writer. And what is your first name? Just Karrie? You want to go by Karrie?
Just Karrie's fine. It's fine.
So me and Karrie, I know, are writers and stuff, but I know I visited your website before under what is it? Go Indie Now.
Yep.
And the first time I actually went there, I wasn't sure because I know I found you through other videos on YouTube. One of them specifically through Spilling Ink.
Mm-hmm.
So
I sponsored.
Yeah. So I saw your sponsor there, and I wanted to go and check you out, and I noticed that you actually cover an umbrella of different indie, I guess, artists out there. Yep. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So GoIndie Now is an online network that supports, highlights, and promotes indie artists of all art forms. We do so through shows that we produce. We produce several different shows on a weekly, monthly, seasonal basis. I do live shows. I do produce shows where I record them and edit them. I cover a lot of events. I just got finished covering Slam Dance Film Festival, which was in February. I'm going to be covering the Indie Film Awards, the Film Threat Indie Film Awards here next weekend. Like we were talking about, I'm driving down to LA to do that. And we basically, I run that network pretty much all the time. I get no sleep, but that's all right.
I know how that goes.
Yeah, I am an artist myself. I have currently I have 2 books, but one of them has been taken down because the publishing company that I am with, Three Furies Press, who published my second book, which was the sequel to the first one, has decided to revamp the first one as well. So I gave them, I actually self-published the first one, and then I gave them the rights to do that. And so they're revamping it, and I'm actually adding a couple extra chapters to that. So we're kind of doing a little bit of a rewrite. And then so I have those 2 books, and then there'll be a third one to finish off the series. It'll be a trilogy, and it'll come out in March of 2022. My series, The Duality of Truth, is a crime thriller series that follows basically 3 main characters who are intertwined with one another based upon events that happened during several decades in the Los Angeles area. It's a detective and former marshal turned FBI agent and a mass murderer. And the first book was written in a duality of point of views, where I wrote one chapter as the detective and one chapter as the mass murderer, and they went back and forth and told the story of how they met and what they went through. And so I did that. And before that, I was almost traditionally published with the same book. So I have experience in that realm. And I also have made 3 short films, worked on probably over 30 film productions and done that. And I spent a year in Hollywood working as a script consultant, a writing assistant, and script doctor, working on various shows and pilots and things of that nature. And I also worked in the music industry for like a year, doing copywriting. So I've been working as an artist for almost 35 years and in some capacity as, either as a hobby or as somebody who got paid for it very badly, very horribly got paid for it, but I still got paid a little bit. Just been doing that pretty much for the last 35 years. So yeah,
Wow.
I was in the Marines, and then I came out of the Marines and decided I wanted to pursue my love of film and writing and all that. So that's me in a nutshell. There you go. Now I don't have to talk for the next hour. It's all.
Well, thank you for your service. That's wonderful. I appreciate it. That's awesome.
So, Karrie, how about you? I know that I actually worked on one of your books, actually, for
yes, the only one that's out right now. This beautiful one right here. Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. Ed approached me in order to do the book cover for that, and it was one of the what do you call it? It was an interesting one because I had never done a book cover for a children's book, and I think that kind of falls under for you, correct? Kind of more like I guess I would place it around a more Secret Garden age, I guess.
Yeah.
So it was an interesting design for me. So I was like, oh, I hope she likes this one. It's kind of out of my range a little bit, but we'll go for it. We'll go for it. We'll see. So Ed kind of talked me into it. So tell me a little bit about the book. I know I tried to glance through it a little bit. It has to do with two fairies and a little boy who finds them.
Yeah, that's pretty much of it. Any little bit I give you would be like spoiling the whole thing. Because I have 6 children and I know how kids are when it comes to reading. The story doesn't take its time to take off. It takes off within the first chapter. It's like these are the people. Now let's go. Now, this is that was a dream that I had that I was telling my kids about it. And my son, he's on the cover. His name's Edwin. I call him Button. So if I say Button a lot, that's my Button. He was really little and he loved hearing, I would sing for him at night and I would tell him stories. Well, that one he absolutely loved. And every night he's like, tell me again about the little boy named Boone. And I'm like, well, Boone, Button, it's all the same thing. So it was just basically me telling a story about him meeting a couple fairies and they just go on a mass adventure. I feel like it's got a little bit of something for everybody. Not just boys, but girls too, because my daughters fell in love with it. And the great thing about it is that the children in the book are about the same age as my 3 youngest. And so when I was writing it, if I didn't feel comfortable with something that came out, I would ask them straight up, hey, does this sound okay? Does it sound stupid? I mean, how do you feel about this? So they would read it. We would throw ideas back and forth. We would marinate on it, so to speak, and then they would give me their input. If it did not fit their opinion, it was out of the book. There's so much that I clipped out in the beginning because it was meant originally for them, and it's me telling that story. So, I mean, you've got some mythology in there. I don't know. I feel like I spoil it if I say too much, but it's there's mystery in it. There's just so much, and it's not just the 2 fairies. There's a little bit more in there because you're going to find all different kinds, because I think it's important that we incorporate every different kind. You got it. You go out, you've got all kinds of people. You've got sorry about that, I got my tech guy over there. He just showed me he finally got it working right there. He's going to share it for me. But so that way when you're reading it, every kid can at least identify with one of the fairies, with one of the characters. There's backstory. There's just so much in it. And I made sure to use certain big words and make it chapters. So that way you've got little kids that can say, hey, I'm reading a chapter book. That's a big word, but they explain it in there. And I was hoping with that, you get some kids that would be interested and say, hey, I want to go look that up. I want to read more about that because that sounds cool. That's, interesting. So it was, I feel like I give too much away on it. To what?
I said, that's a cool concept. I love that.
Yeah. Because kids not all of them like to read, but when they do like to read, it's good to give them something that just, it grabs them and just takes them. Like,
And I think it's a good market right now. I think that the children's market, or at least that market that you're in, I think I read as one of the more bigger markets out there that actually you can make some pretty good fans out of.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, the first thing that I went for was taking it to the local schools. The elementary and the primary that are right around the corner from me, they've got copies. I gave it to some of the teachers. They've got copies. It's just anybody that I knew that I worked with that had kids, I would give them a copy and say, hey, for me, this is more of sharing the story than it is making money. Because I'm not J.K. Rowling. I mean, if I ever make that status, yay. But most of that money would go right back into the community because it was a story for the kids, not a story for me. So whatever it does, wherever it goes, it's going to go right back to the people that were right there wanting to know more about it, wanting to read it. So
I don't know.
I think that's a good start.
I don't know if you've heard, but you don't want to be J.K. Rowling.
No, that's what it said. No, it said status. I'm like, if I ever, it's not going to be like that. Yeah, I'm not.
She's not exactly a nice person, from what I gather.
I feel like sometimes big times change people, and not always for good. So, I mean, with everything that's going on in the world, things should change for the better, but they're not. There's some people that are just stuck, and they don't want to move forward. But I want to move forward.
Yeah,
it's funny that you're approaching it the way you are, because for me, that was my introduction. Like my father and my parents would go to a bookstore every Sunday and to sit down, and they would read. They would grab some books, and we would read. We'd be sitting there and reading. And I always gravitated, like I was in the children's section. They leave me in the children's. I always wandered off into another section, and I remember picking up Dune when I was a young child, which I think I was 8, 9 years old when I first wanted to read it, and my father was like, "No way, you'll never get it. It'll go right over your head." But I challenged him to let me try, and I did, and it changed everything for me. I mean, it's a terrible book to read now for me, but as a child, there's so many things that I wanted to look up. Like, the whole idea of the, deities and all of the, all the religion and spiritual aspect of it. Like, I gravitated to that right away when I was even as a young child. So I was always curious. And so it's cool. I think children are very curious, and we don't give them enough credit for letting them explore that and taking that on. I think we try to coddle them way too much these days, and it's tough. I mean, I get it. The society is different, but it's if you don't let them gauge their curiosity, how are they ever going to be curious? So.
That's exactly my point right there. I can get right behind that, because we don't give them enough credit for how smart they are. They really are just, and they're seeing the world from a whole different viewpoint than we were, because, I mean, there's different things from what we grew up with. And if you give a child the option to go and search for books like that and actually just let them read it, it's just like, you watch cartoons as a kid and then you watch it as an adult. There was so much you didn't understand, but you were still entertained by it. It still took you somewhere. And that's what's important. You got to be able to explore, because we could have the next great thing right there, but they're being sheltered from, oh no, don't read about this because it's not right, or I don't believe in that. No, they need to expand their minds. It's the better thing to do, at least in my opinion. It's great.
Get a little bit of experience from everything. And the thing about them is that they're not like us nowadays, because when we're older, we start getting a certain focus in particular ideas of reading and what we want to read and what genre we want to read is when they're young, their imagination is still out there. They're, they have a humongous imagination, and they might get, focused on one book and love that book, and it might actually, have some sort of inspiration for them. And it's good to have. When I was young, I was, I would draw comics, and I would still write stories to them. And I like that whole idea of having my imagination go and discover these characters that just existed, and then I could bring them into life. And with books, I think I read more comics than I did books. I wasn't too big into the novel reading yet, but eventually I started moving toward it when I was more around 11 or 12. I would give a look, but for the most part, I was more of an artist in drawing comic books and writing the story. And what I gathered from that is I would look at all different kinds of stories, all different kinds of. I would look at some thick books too, though, just to get my ideas. And then I would go to my wall and I would draw like these pictures of a different realm, and I would have actual fairies, unicorns, like these gateways on these walls that what I would draw when I was young that would lead me into this new world. And I think when we talk about these books for children, it leads them to all these gateways and different ideas that we can present to them, just to let them know, just explore out there and see what kind of ideas you like. And that'll inspire them.
And it helps with problem solving too, especially when you can expand the mind, think outside the box completely.
Yeah. And so you hadn't, this is your first book. Have you written more before this, or how did you get into the whole writing aspect?
When I was a kid, the craziest thing, because I don't think I've ever really told the story. We had a storyteller come to the school. I want to say that I was in the 4th grade. And he was reading, but he did a little bit of singing in it too. We're going on a bear hunt. And I was watching the way he presented the story, the way he told it, and how he would draw everybody in. Because it was like you're not just listening, you're interacting with it. It's just like move around with it. And I thought to myself, that's what I want to do. So I would write down stories and stuff, nothing, just more like personal things. I didn't really write my first novel until, January of 2004. And I was pregnant. I was on bed rest. I was pretty much stuck in the house. So I just sat down and I wrote, and I shared it with people, and they're like, this is really good. You should pursue this. Well, as time went on, I had more kids, and I started working more and everything. And that this dream right here, it just grabbed me. It said, this story needs to be told. So in writing it, I figured I would try to get myself out there. I'd try just a little bit of something, because I had no idea what I was doing. And I think it was, in my opinion, it was destiny that my family, that my daughters, they had met Ed Soder and Kendra. And it was during a Halloween, I think it was HoloCon in 2017, or maybe before. It was 2017. And Ed got a copy of the first 3 chapters of my book, and Kendra read it, and she said, that's it. We're signing her on. She's going to be a part of Burning Willow Press. We need more of this. So I actually got the contract in December of 2017. Now, unfortunately, during that process right there of getting all the edits done and everything, due to many reasons, and I can completely understand and I support the choice of them for shutting down Burning Willow Press. But one thing that Ed promised me was he would help me get through this. He would help me with the edits and guide me along the way, because he said once I got it done one time, I would be good and I would know what I was doing. So I ended up self-publishing. During that time period, it was like kind of, am I doing the right thing? Because all the other authors were getting picked up by publishing companies, but nobody was interested in my style of children's books. So there was that back and forth of, should I bother with this? Is anybody even going to want to read it? Does anybody care at all? But I felt that the most important thing to do was to at least show my kids that even at my age, everything I've been through, even working, and all that that you can still pursue a dream. I write still all the time. I have a huge binder. I use OneNote a lot, and it's full of every story idea, mainly because I don't want to let anything go or write anything off as that wasn't good, that doesn't sound great, because you can still draw from many ideas. You can have 50 ideas and just pick little pieces of each one and create something great. And I do the same thing with my kids because they like to write too. My daughters especially, they write some amazing stuff. One of my sons, Xander, he used to write, and his writing is amazing. It's like he puts me to shame with the way he writes and his imagination. I mean, it's just beautiful, and the fact that he can do the art with it too. It's like I feel like me pursuing this anyway, going through with it, avoiding all the naysayers, and just doing this and sticking with it, that I may have just inspired them to go for something greater. So that is literally what I went for. That was that inspiration from that one person, that one story, and it followed me the whole way.
And I think that's a very great goal right there, in a sense that, you know, I started writing when I was around 16, and probably not as good as most people at 16, because I finally started kind of burning out. I still drew a lot of comics, but I started burning out and wanted to focus more on one area, because with comics you had to do the back then you do the pencil drawing, then you do the inking, then you do the coloring, and then you still have to do the story yourself when you just doing everything. And then I started reading. That's when I finally started picking up novels and reading with no pictures. But when I did my novels, that's what I had, was a lot of, I guess, negative thoughts in my mind saying, who am I kidding? You know, I can't write a story. Like, look how many words are in this book. How many words can I think about that are kind of fit in this book? And also details. Yeah. One of the first problems I had was, and I do see it from other, like, I have some friends that come up to me, they're authors, and they want to ask, well, how do you do the details, or how do you do the describing when they're walking through here? And they go into detail. They go into deep detail, and they're saying, well, we went into this house, and there was a painted white boards, and they describe everything. And I tell them, well, no, you just got to give it a general painting, a general idea of the house, and then you let them play with the mind on how it's going to go. But for the most part, a lot of authors get very burdened and lose confidence in themselves. Did I lose her?
Maybe.
Yeah, she froze there. Yeah, she'll pop back up in the mid. But anyway, I was going on and saying that as these authors, they would, hold back and not write and get burnt out. And I always kept telling everybody, like, no, you just keep going. You're never going to know until you make the shot, or until you actually take the shot. Well, how's the saying goes is 100% of the shots that you don't take don't actually make it. So,
right. Yeah.
But I think what she was saying, that was a really good plan on how she went about, and just go through all the, naysayers, and because you're always going to have naysayers, right? You're always going to have these people who say, oh no, he's not going to make it. And some people might actually go to your face and tell you, oh yeah, you'll make it, but in the back of their minds they're thinking, no, it's not going to happen.
Well, I know firsthand that people will do that to you. It happened to me. I mean, I got blacklisted from the publishing industry for a long time because I was deemed as I was deemed as not somebody that you wanted to work with. I was somebody who they basically called, a diva, a first time writer syndrome kind of person, and it was a difficult pill to swallow in terms of, going through that. I mean, I've told a story for most people who know me 1,000 times, but basically I wrote my novel. I went to a writer's conference. I pitched it to an agent. The agent picked me up, and then we got an offer from a medium-sized publishing company in New York. They flew us out there, put us up. It was really cool. It was like the greatest experience. I was like, oh my God, I'm like an author. I'm going to do this. Right. And we get it to the publishing company. There's my book sitting on the table, and it's got all these little tabs in it. So I'm thinking, all right, they tore it apart. This is like I'm getting all the experience I want of being an author. And basically, they wanted me to rewrite the whole thing in a different tone, in a different way, because they were going to sell it as a TV movie. So I walked away from the deal. Most money I've ever seen in most zeros I've ever seen on a check in my life. And I mean, it wasn't it wasn't that much money. It was $10,000. So it wasn't that much money, but still, that was the most I had ever seen at the moment that I got that. And still, I don't think I've ever had a check that's $10,000. But
you would think, though, if you're getting that, though, it tells you that your work has some sort of value. And I think a lot of people, when they're writing and have novels out there, they want to have that, I guess, assurance that they're actually valuable. They're doing something valuable because your work is.
Yeah, well, basically, it was me giving them it was a finder's fee for the story. I would have been taken out of the entire thing. I would have reworked the story and then handed it off to them and basically let them do whatever they wanted with it. So, but my name would still be attached to it. So my thought was, if they do this badly, which it sounded like they were going to do, I will never get another job anywhere anyway. So I walked away from the deal, and we went back to square one, tried to send it to other publishers and things like that. And one of the publishers actually knew my agent very well, they were really good friends, and they had sent her a letter that publisher that I went to sent to all the publishers in the New York area, and basically told them not to work with me, that I was super difficult to work with, and that whatever they would, whatever suggestions they would make about my book, I would tell them to go fuck themselves, or tell them to be better. I was difficult to work with, which was not the case. I mean, I made some mistakes. I'm not blaming them, and a lot of people would say, well, why'd you walk away from a lot of money? It wasn't really about the money. I wanted to tell the story I wanted to tell, and they weren't letting me tell the story, and I just didn't want to do that. So I turned away, and I walked away from that book for 15 years after that. I didn't touch it again for another 15 years. And finally, my now ex-wife was the one who convinced me I should try and pursue it and put it back out there. And that's what I did. And I self-published it in 2015. So, but.
I think she's trying to contact me on. Oh, there we go. There she is.
Sorry about that.
That's all right. No, that's what we were talking about. We just kind of went with the idea of how we were saying. You got to just go through with the naysayers and don't give up. A lot of new authors, I think, out there, that's the first thing that stops them. Yeah. And I know when I have some of them come up to me and they ask me, well, how did you end up going? It's like, well, you know what? I had my doubts. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, I don't know. Maybe this story won't ever get read. But what I like to follow and always talk about in the show is the story for me. I always put it akin to a demon in my mind that wants to get out, and it keeps wanting to get out and won't let me sleep. It won't let me do anything until I write the story. And that's the only way I could describe it. But at the same time, I have my doubts, but I have to move past those doubts. We're never going to achieve or know what would have happened. You don't want to be like, years from now, maybe on your deathbed or something, and be like, what if I did go for it? You want to have the actual answer. And maybe it doesn't work out, but at least you have some sort of closure, but maybe it does work out too. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was lucky that 15 years later I was able to do it again and put it out there. So I mean, I really always feel like I was lucky in that respect. But I think it was always calling my name, and I kept it in a drawer for a very long time, and that was probably a mistake on my part. But again, I made a lot of mistakes. But I learned things the hard way sometimes. But that part of it,
as long as you learn them.
Yeah, so I mean, then putting it out there and everything like that, and I actually rewrote the entire third act from the original. So even the one that was going to get published, it wasn't the one that ended up I published. So, so I think I was in a better spot as a writer. I was more experienced at that time. So I think everything happened the way it was supposed to happen. It's just, I know a lot of people would say, hey, like I said before, you get a check for $10,000, you don't turn it away, and you go with whatever people are telling you to go with. But that wasn't the gut feeling that I had. So like I said, I walked away from it because I didn't.
But the story would have been, you kind of mentioned, and I kind of zeroed on it. It would kind of been different in a sense, right? It wouldn't have been the story that you wanted to tell.
Yeah. So remember I was saying I wrote it as a dual personality, as a dual perspective novel, and they wanted me to turn it into a third person perspective and write it from that peripheral. And that was not how I wanted to write it. So I said, well, I don't know how to write that story. That's not the story I wrote, And they're like, well, we'll help you get there. And I'm like, well, but the whole idea is that you're not going to promote the book. You're going to promote the story so that you could sell the rights to the story and make it into whatever bad, after school special you want to make it into, so it's, I really felt like that was not the way I wanted to do this, so.
And I think that's another thing for authors too. I don't know if Karrie might have gone through it or not, but I know I went through it a couple of times. Was my actual first novel, Raven. Raven has a cover that would almost fall under the young adult category, but it's not young adult. It's adult. And a lot of people say, well, if you want to cater more to a specific market that's actually going to buy it, they say you should take away all the adult stuff and make it more, where because she was turned into a vampire at 13. The curse still aged her to about 16, but that's where I stopped it. I do got adult characters in there though. And when I created it, I never created it in a sense that it was going to be for young adults. Everything was going to be about dark themes, dark situations, and more about how, certain vices of humans are kind of represented in my vampires. And so if I switch that's not my story in a sense. I feel it's not my story. And if it's not my story, then I'm writing just for money. And if I'm writing for money, I already do that everything else I do for money right now, like photography and web design, I still have a passion for, but that's already situated in my work for money compartment, right? My novels are more for passion and enjoyment, and hopefully people will buy the book and enjoy the story, and then I can make money off of something that I have a higher level of enjoyment of doing.
As somebody who's written for money and written in the lowest form and the lowest common denominator in a sitcom, I can tell you it's not as exciting as you think it is. It's not as fun.
Like yeah, that doesn't sound like it. No,
it's pretty terrible. But yeah, I get what you're saying. It's totally you wanted to tell the story you wanted to tell in the way you wanted to tell it, and that's how I felt too. And the only thing about it was that I was very young when this happened. I had just gotten out of the Marines. I was 24, I think, around there, something like that. I don't remember what, but yeah, I'm that old. I don't remember how old I am. But that idea was like, no, that's not the story I want to tell. But I also probably didn't know what the story was that I wanted to tell too, which is, they say, I don't know if you've both heard this before, but they say until you've written 1,000,000 words, you haven't written anything, right? And that's basically the idea is you write and you write and you edit and you edit, and then you find your voice, you find who you are. Now, that's not necessarily true. I don't believe that. I probably could tell you in the first 20 pages of whatever I've written in my lifetime, I knew who I was and what I wanted to write. But I also know that I've gotten better over time, and I've gotten and like I said, I think that publishing at the time I published was the right time to publish it. If I had published it any sooner, I would have fallen flat on my face because there was a big hole in the story that nobody saw. my ex-wife was the only person that ever saw it, and she figured it out. And when she figured it out, it was like this epiphany went off, and I had finally found my story. So it was kind of weird that all of that happened the way it happened. So
I guess there might be a process to it in the universe. I think your first novel is your first stepping stone to actually finally evolving. If you don't write that first novel, you can't evolve. You're never gonna figure out what experience you gain from your first novel, and that's why I tell like first writers, beginning writers, just do it, get it out there, and make your mistakes. If you're not looking to make mistakes, then you're not looking to grow. You got to make those mistakes. You got to learn from them, and then you got to become better in that sense, and you will become better. My writing is completely different when I was, of course, 16. I didn't know about conflict in the story. I just told a story, and I just had talking heads, on the nose dialogue. I didn't know any of that. I didn't know there was rules that you had to follow a story, and a lot of people never knew that either. And when I started getting into screenplay writing, the first 30 minutes of a movie, I started telling people, watch, just look at the first 30 minutes of a movie. As soon as the 30 minutes, or within 20 to 30 minutes, something's going to happen. And then you're going to go into the second act, and I keep telling them that's the inciting incident. Books are the same way. I didn't know about those rules. And when I finally figured it out, it gave me structure, and I figured out what my mistakes were when I first started writing these epic fantasies. It's like, oh, well, no wonder it's boring. They're just talking about every day. How's the weather? Oh, it's fine. It's kind of raining over here in Elandra. Yeah, we got like snow coming in. Tuesday, we're forecast by the magic user to say that we're going to have like hailstorms. So, nobody wants to know about that.
The casual banter.
Yeah. So how about you, Karrie? Have you learned like you said this is your first novel. Have you gained any knowledge from either mistakes or what you've done right?
Absolutely. I mean, I had no idea about spacing, how to do paragraphs, how you do flashbacks. I just basically, I wrote and I would do, a paragraph or whatever, and I'd move it, and I knew about certain punctuation. But then when I had my first editor take a look at it, he was like, wow, this is just, wow. And it's like, when you're writing, make those mistakes. That's why they have editors. You're there to tell the story. The editor's there to fix it. And I was blessed enough to have Ed Soder be my editor for that second round of edits. He did the final one right there. And then he would go back through, and he's like, I'm going to give it some time. He went back over it again, and he would find something else. It's, but if you're not ready to have somebody take your story and spit it back into your face and say, this is no good, you got to go right back over every little thing, then you're not ready for that yet. You have to be ready to get your feelings hurt, because they're not going to be gentle about it. It's just going to be like, this right here makes no sense. What were you trying to say? And then you look over it again and you're like, I don't know what I was trying to say, but now I'm curious. What did so he would do that a lot, but he was dedicated in knowing the story to fix it. So just get it out there. That's really the best thing you can do. You can read over it later. Don't, but I have a problem. I can't do that. Maybe I know I can't be the only one. I'll be writing, I'll think of something, and then I have to stop and I start researching it. Is this accurate? Would this make sense? Does this fit? Well, here's this right here. Can I slide that in there? That doesn't make any sense. And I stop the process, but I know the story well enough that I can pick up afterwards to keep going. Not everybody can do that. It's like every single one of my chapters has its own soundtrack too, just to keep.
Yeah, you get your son. Yeah, I write a lot of action, so I gotta have like those like action soundtracks and epic music going on in the background when I'm writing. Okay, here's where we go. We got the sword scene. Let's do it. But yeah, I get it. Yeah, because see, I'm a straight up, and I'm not a plotter. I'm a straight up just write the story until the end, because when I write, I know two things. I know the beginning and I know the ending. It's the middle ground that I have to really figure out. But as long as I know the ending and how I wanted to get there, I can kind of always steer the characters back, because the characters always want to go somewhere else, and I've got to bring them back over here to like, no, we're gonna go over here. You're gonna die, okay? No,
Lights just came on. It's time to come home. Go this way.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
most pantsers have trouble with the middle.
Yeah.
I'm a pantser myself, but I've learned over time to just keep going. I just keep going until I get to where I want to go, and then what I do is I'll like earmark certain things I want to research, or highlight them, or put them in brackets, a spot where I know I'm going to research it, and then I go back, and sometimes I even forget to go back, and then my editor goes, "Why are these brackets here?" But apparently I don't need it, so it's all right.
and yeah, like I said, I do get kind of lost in the middle, but I always know as long as I have my conflict and increasing tension, I know I can move it forward. I do a little cheat sheet though. What I do is always introduce a new character in the middle. That's why my books are only 80,000 to 90,000 words, but yet they have more characters, because I always introduce a new character in the middle, and that kind of helps push everything else. It's new, it's fresh. Oh, hey, who's this guy? Or have a new situation pop up. So that's what is supposed to happen. But in the oh, I didn't even know I had that on the I left that in the private chat. I was like, there's a comment there. How come I can't see it? Oh, it's in private chat. There we go. but yeah, there we go.
There you go.
Now I can see them. But what I was gonna say was I guess with pantsers, yeah, they have the most problem in the middle, and well, I saw that. Now it got thrown off. Anyway, go ahead. What we were talking about? That threw me off. I saw that, and I was like, I forgot exactly what I was going to say. But we were talking about the well, yeah, like I go through there and I try to get all the pretty much the conflict going in the middle is what helps me drive it, because the characters, I don't know, I can't imagine. They call it like the desert, right? And the only way I ever learned how to actually write the middle of the stories, because I actually started with screenplays. And when I was going into screenplays is one of the most, I think I had told Joe, it's like a boot camp of writing. And everything with screenplays, the way I have to do it, I have to do it in present time, where you're kind of writing visually, because everything is moving with action when you're trying to write for the screen. So you have to kind of go forward and imagine that already. And with screenplays, I was able to actually see the beginning, the middle, and the end, but just look part of the middle enough to move forward is what I saw.
Well, luckily for screenplays, you don't need that much description. You can just outline it, and that's the thing about it that people, especially novelists, struggle with when they're writing screenplays, is how much do I put in there, how much do I keep out, and it's all about being brief, because what the thing about screenplays are, they're blueprints for the production that is going to happen around them. So it's a collaborative effort that you're only a cog in the wheel part of. So you're presenting an idea, and basically the director and producers are going to take that idea and they're going to make it into something visual. And so they need visual cues. They need things that they don't care if I'm wearing a blue shirt. They don't give a crap about that. They'd rather let the art designer decide what shirt that person's going to wear, because that's the last thing they want to worry about, because they've got to worry about getting actors. They got to worry about where the camera's going to go, where the lights are going to go, where everything's going to go. And there's so much that goes on in a film set that if you're concerned about a blue shirt, you're lost in the weeds already. You're never. So all of that matters nothing. It doesn't matter at all. Whereas with novels, like we were talking about, when you walk into the house and it's a white house and all that, some of that might actually be beneficial, because it might foreshadow or give you something that will visually stimulate what's going to happen next. And you're the director, you're the producer, you're steering your audience the way you want to steer them, and so you need a little bit more to get people to see it and to imagine it. Whereas on the screen, we're going to push it in your face, and you're going to see it whether you like it or not. So
Yeah, because I know that there was like for novels, theater, and screenplays, they're all different kind of discipline. Because I know for theater is more about the dialogue. You got to get the dialogue right, and especially so you can be able to shout it out and play it out, so you can.
Well, also sure theater has moving parts, right? Theater, you move from one end to the other end, so you need to know where you're going as the character too. So you can't just go, okay, well, this character says this. Is he standing? Is he sitting? Is she walking around? Is she going off screen when she says that? So all those things have to be in theater. So that's the visual element of theater. Whereas, a novel is basically everything, So
it mixes everything together.
Although I've had this conversation with this person, but there's a famous author that I gave a lot of shit to about. They wrote about some roses in a garden, and it was 16 pages of roses in the garden. And I said, "This is the worst fucking thing I've ever read." And they came back at me and gave me crap about it because I wasn't supposed to, talk about it. But there was a reason behind it that I didn't realize that was going to be substantially important in the next books. But that's the reason they wrote it that way. But I was like, man, that's tough to get through. That's why I don't like fantasy novels. I'm sorry. I just don't. I have trouble dealing with prologues and then all the info dumping that goes on. And then, by the time you explain to me your planet, your home planet, I'm already out of the story. Then you're going to try and send me on an adventure. No, come on. Just send me on the adventure. I just want to go on the adventure. But this
is it through the character's senses, so you can get the story through there.
Well, there's the famous Tolkien 16 endings, right? And it's like, dude, you already ended this story. Why do I need 16 more different endings to the story? It's like, I get it. People hate me for this, or they get on my case about it for this, but to me, it's garbage. It doesn't do me. And I come from a visual world, and I come from, like you do, Mr. Parks, and that I come from the screenwriting background, and film was always my love. So I like to get to the meat of the story, get in and out of, get to the story, get out of it. I don't need all the.
Yeah, I kind of do my novels that way too. I don't know about Karrie. I don't know. I know she said that hers. There's something with pacing, right? I have to have a fast-paced novel. Weirdly enough, I still am able to read Anne Rice. I don't know how I'm able to do that, but like The Witching Hour, oh my goodness. I love detail here and there, but the detail has to go with a certain pacing, right? You don't want to, I guess, get stuck on, like you said, 3 pages of detail. I myself personally cannot do that. I can't get into the details that long. That's why when I describe a house, I always have to have something happening to make it interesting for the house. Mm-hmm. If there's some sort of symbolism, maybe, or it's describing the mood. I know you, Karrie, mentioned that you have a fast pacing in the sense that you created the story and it starts right off the bat.
Yeah, that's important because not everybody can focus that long. And then, yeah, exactly. And the way I look at it, if I need to describe something, I need to give them just enough so that way they can already picture it themselves. I mentioned that he's in this house and it's out in the country. Let that be any house you've ever seen from the country that you like. It doesn't, I'm not going to say that I didn't spend 2 hours drawing out the floor plan and decorating rooms and all that. No, I didn't do that. It's just not in the book. Okay.
But that's the obsessive secret things we do as authors that nobody knows about, right? That's what you have a website for, so you can post all those little Easter eggs and fun things that you can have for people. But that's cool. I like that. But if you're going to put it in the book, then you're going to lose.
That's no, they're not going to pay attention to it. You got to keep going, and every now and then just slow it down just enough, so that way they're not expecting that next go. Now they're sitting down, they're going to take a nap, and then he wakes up and oh wow, what's happening now? What are they doing? Everybody's buzzing around. This is a whole different culture. And without even having to describe it, it's like, oh, we're in a big area inside of, I don't know, a tree or something like that. Know your tree. Just imagine that tree. Let that be your tree. It doesn't have to be a white one or a blue one or whatever. It's whatever you want it to be. That's what's important. Is when your imagination gets into the book too, you're a part of it. It's not just a story. You're a part of that right there. So too much detail is just.
Although I have to say, if it's a blue tree, I'm wondering why it's a blue tree. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah. That's what you want too, is like get your readers to say why. Then they want to keep on going after they ask that question. So the more questions you pose, the more interest you're going to create on your reader.
Yeah.
And description, I had those. One of the main problems was descriptions for me when I first started. Like I said, I would go so we were walking in the dirt and there's these hundreds of rocks. One rock was a foot large. The other one was about the size of a pebble, and they keep walking. I was going, I didn't know how to describe detail. Everybody and people would come, and nowadays they ask me and they're like, how am I supposed to describe this? I got like 2 pages. Like, no, don't do the 2 pages. All you have to do is, the best way I do is just enough to get at least some of the 5 senses, right? Mm-hmm. You definitely want to immerse, but everybody has their filters. So at least put, the sense of touch, smell, and eyesight. Nice. Those are the main ones, at least I try to focus on. I know there's hearing. Hearing just gives you that ambient noise when you're around, like if in a forest or something, maybe there's creatures or birds. You want to give them just a nice taste of it, but everybody's brain is going to fill in the rest, right? You're going to create that mood. And
there's ways to cheat too. Like you could use dialogue. Why is this a big blue tree in the middle of a green forest?
Oh yeah,
something like that. So you could do that. You could also have the characters, kind of reference something from before, and then that would be an Easter egg for people to go back and look at and realize that you kind of, your mind kind of played a trick on you there, kind of thing. And really it didn't. It was just an optical illusion the whole time. You didn't know that, but authors knew that. The author knew that. So there's ways that you can do those kind of things without and subtly, where But if you're describing a rose petal for 15 pages, you got to cover a lot. At least in 1 page,
Yeah. Well, I mean, even Stephen King, I forgot what story I was reading. I think it was Salem's Lot, and he started going into describing the host town or something. It's a cold day or gray, gloomy day or something, and I was like, "Holy cow! How many pages is this?" So I just want to get to the story. The biggest thing that I have, and I know a lot of authors do it, and it's fine. I'm not saying anything against it, but personally for me is flashbacks. Mm-hmm. Flashbacks are so hard. Weirdly enough, though, some readers that have read my first novel think that it's the whole story is a flashback, but it technically wasn't supposed to be a flashback.
You did what I was talking about. You made it an optical illusion. So.
Exactly, because my story starts in the present prologue in LA, and then the actual story starts in 1776. Nice. And then it goes from there, and then it finishes the last chapter back in the present time, because it has a connection for all 3, which I'm working on 3rd novel to connect everything. But I had one of the reviewers, somebody from Amazon and on Goodreads, left a review, and they said, I'm not sure why Mr. Parks decided to tell the story in a long flashback. And I was like, I never even thought about it like that. I thought I was just telling the story, because the prologue usually isn't, I guess, I don't know, usually to say, like, be careful with the prologue, because you want to make sure that it connects the story in some way or another, but it's still kind of apart from the story. So mine was just completely apart from the story, but it still connected it. But I don't know, I didn't catch that from myself. But yeah, flashbacks, it's like one of my main complaints is flashbacks, but yet supposedly my whole entire story is a flashback. But no, it's because I love action, especially if I start getting into an action novel, and all of a sudden somewhere in the middle, it's like, well, we're back in like 1770 from 2000. So now we're gonna tell the story of what happened over here. It's like, what do we get into? Anime all of a sudden? We're gonna go into the backstory of everybody. So I
And
don't know.
again,
That's just me personally. I don't know.
I
Y'all
used
probably.
I used a trick for that. So again, I tricked the audience in that. So my detective is his whole thing is that the novel, I almost said movie, the novel starts with his wife and infant daughter being murdered by this mass murderer. That's how it starts. And so he's going on this journey of derailment, and he's falling to the deepest abyss, and in doing that he's starting to hallucinate, and he goes back in time with his hallucinations, thinking about the flashbacks of how he got to where he is now. And he's seeing this like it's like a movie that he's projecting in front of everybody. So that's how I used it, and that's how I got kind of around that idea. But and I kind of try to connect the two, and it's part of the reason why I'm getting it rewritten is because I didn't do such a great job of connecting the two. But yeah, so that's part of it. So I do use those flashbacks for that reason, simply because we start at a point where the story has taken a really wicked turn. So because that's where, for me, that's again, as a screenwriter, for somebody who has a visual element, that's to me where the story began. So, but you had to get some backstory from the characters to know why their motivation was for that to happen. So I use that device a lot. So, and it's told in the first person, so it's almost like they could tell their own story too. So a lot of times, the person will go, well, when I was 16, this is how I felt, kind of thing. And so again, using a trick and a device to do that.
Make it a little bit better. Yeah. For us non-likable flashbackers. Well, I know we're already getting about 3 minutes away. The last questions of the show I usually ask is what for new writers out there who are just starting to break in, who were in the same situation, I guess, as you, Karrie, when you first started. What kind of advice would you give a brand new writer like that might be important to you, that you think it would be helpful to them?
I don't know. If anything, believe in yourself. That's people don't write for somebody specific. And if somebody doesn't like what you wrote, you didn't write it for them. Write it for you, and write it for the people that are going to want to read it. Because not everybody's going to like it, but that doesn't have to mean that it was bad.
Yeah, you can't cater to everybody. You got to have some people not like you got to have your first 1-star review sometime. So you can get that badge.
Yes, you need a nemesis to carry the plot. Yes.
How about you, Joe? What do you think? What would be a good for starting authors and writers out there?
To write, do it. Don't think about it. Just do it. Just keep going. Just keep at it. Don't get in your own way. Don't get in your own head. Just write whatever you can write, and don't beat yourself up about it. Don't get upset. Writing takes time. It's not it's an art. It's a craft. It's not something that you can just do. I mean, there are a few people who can just do it, but those people are rare. Trust me, they're rare. I've interviewed thousands and thousands of people at this point, and I can tell you they're very rare. So just do it and keep at it. Pick up any book you can on writing. Pick up any show you can on writing. Watch the podcasts like this and watch shows like this, and be engaged with your community and find the writer community. They're out there, and find your genre. And if you're writing something that's a specific genre, if you're writing a genre fiction novel, find your genre and find your tribe, and they will help you get through it. So there's ways out there. So go find them.
All righty. And so I wanted to make sure everybody knows where they can find you, Karrie. I know you have a website.
I do.
Let's see. We can. Hopefully,
Yeah.
that's the correct one, right?
It is. It's always going to say that it's under construction. You see right there. I was reading to my daughter's second grade class. I've gone to Button right there. His first grade. No, that was kindergarten right there, where I went to his class, and he was helping me tell the story because he knows it better than I do. But
Well,
yeah,
that's good. Yeah, he got a nice interest in it, so that means it really piqued his brain there.
yeah. So there's that right there. I'm on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. I seem to post more on Twitter. I think it's because it just, for me, it functions a lot easier than
And
the
what's
other places.
your name on there?
It
For
would
people to find
be,
you?
yeah, it would be, if you were to search it, you could easily search just K.A. Reina, all one thing, and always the number 6, because 6 is important.
Okay.
my minion army, there are 6. So.
Oh, okay, I get it.
Yeah, I got 6 kids.
Your backup. There we go.
Yeah.
All right, and then Mr. Joe Compton. I know that they can definitely go to Go Indie now, right? Ooh, let me see. It's not a .com there though. Let me put that up there so people can at least recognize it when they go.
The website is really not that important. I don't do a lot of work on the website, to be quite frank with you. It's there. Really, if you want to see what we do and how we do it, our YouTube channel is where you want to go. Go Indie Now. Just if you search on YouTube, Go Indie Now, all one word or 3 words, you'll find us. We're the first thing that pops up, and just go subscribe. And we have many shows and many different avenues of where you can find writers and how to do that, and things that we do. So that would be the best place to find Go Indie Now, is there, or facebook.com/Go Indie Now. You can do that as well. But I'm on Twitter at JoeDream73. So
all right.
I use Twitter quite a bit as well. I'm also on TikTok and Instagram and all those wonderful places as Go Indie Now.
I haven't gotten on TikTok. I tried Twitter. So far, Twitter has. I don't know. I get some followers, but at the same time, nobody connects at the same time. So Twitter's still kind of a interesting land for me to discover.
For everybody out there, I literally just followed K.A. Reina, and it was super easy to find her. So you should not have any problem.
Thank you.
Awesome. All righty. Well, that will complete the show. Thank you for everybody that tuned in today. I know we're a brand new show, so if anybody wants to go to our YouTube, Writing Raven Universe, and actually subscribe, we're trying to grow. Me and Janelle wasn't able to make it, but I'm sure she's happy to have everybody that did view the show on. So we'll see you again next time. I'm not sure when it'll be. I gotta get with her, so. It might be on a Thursday again, but I'll definitely make sure to let everybody know a couple of days before when I have an interviewee. But other than that, thank you, everybody. My name is WJR Parks. You can find me on Kindle as well. Just type in WJR Parks and then WJR Park Writings on Facebook. Other than that, we'll see everybody later. Thanks to you guys for joining me today. And then...